The summer heat pressed down on the small town of Eldridge in southern England like a heavy blanket. No breeze stirred the leaves of the old oak outside the open windows. Inside the modest stone house on Willow Lane, the air was thick with the smell of lilies and sweat. Thomas Hale lay in his own bed, propped up on pillows, the sheets damp against his thin frame. At 78, he had lived what he believed was a good life. A school teacher for 40 years, a quiet pillar of the community. A man who never raised his voice, who helped neighbors mend fences and children with their sums. Everyone knew Thomas. Everyone liked him. Or so he had always told himself. He had refused the hospital. When the doctor came 3 days ago and said the cancer had spread too far, Thomas had shaken his head. "I want to go at home," he told his daughter Clara, "among my people. The way it should be." So they brought him home. The bedroom filled slowly throughout the morning. Neighbors, former pupils now grown, old friends from the cricket club, the vicar, the postmistress, the butcher, Clara and her husband, a handful of cousins, more than 30 people in all, crowding the room and spilling into the hallway. They spoke in low voices at first, holding his hand, telling him how much he meant to them, how proud they were. Thomas listened, eyes half closed, a faint smile on his lips. This was what he had wanted, to be surrounded, to be loved until the end. But the hours stretched. Morning became afternoon. The sun climbed higher, turning the room into an oven despite the open windows. Flies buzzed lazily against the ceiling. The lilies in the vase began to droop. First it was only small things. A man from the cricket club glanced at his watch. A woman fanned herself with a folded newspaper. Someone coughed and said, "It's terribly warm in here." Another murmured, "I've got to pick the children up soon." The whispers grew. Someone mentioned the football match from last night. "Did you see that penalty?" A neighbor checked her phone, sighed, and typed a quick message. Clara's husband shifted in his chair and said quietly to her, "He's taking his time, isn't he?" Thomas heard every word. They were not cruel. They were not hateful. They were simply waiting for the moment to come so they could go back to their lives. The match on television, the school run, the dinner to cook, the work email to answer. The deathbed visit was important, yes. But life continued. Obligations waited. Time did not pause. Then came the suggestion. It started with Mrs. Carter from next door. She leaned toward Clara and said softly, "In our family, when someone lingers like this, we lay them on the ground. It's an old belief. They say it helps the soul find peace. Lets them go more easily." Clara hesitated. Mr. Patel, the old postmaster, nodded slowly. "My grandmother did the same, said the earth pulls them back when they're ready. It's kinda really." One by one, others murmured agreement. "It's what people used to do. Perhaps it would help. He's been like this for hours now." Thomas felt hands under his shoulders, under his knees, a taste. They lifted him gently, so gently, and lowered him onto the cool stone floor. A blanket was spread beneath him. Someone placed a pillow under his head. Kay lay there, staring up at the ceiling beams he had looked at every day for 50 years. Oh, the room went quiet for a moment, as if they expected something to happen. Nothing happened. The whispers returned, softer now. Someone checked the time again. Someone else said, "Maybe now." Thomas felt the stone cold against his back. Kay. He felt the weight of every gaze resting on him, not with love, not with grief, but with a quiet, polite impatience. They were waiting for permission to leave, waiting for the moment they could say the right words, shed the right tears, and walk out into the summer evening. And in that moment, something inside him broke, not with anger, not with despair, but with a cold, clear understanding. He had spent his life believing he was different, that he mattered, that the people who filled this room loved him the way he had tried to love them. But they did not. Not really. They loved the idea of him, the memory, the obligation. They loved the story they would tell later. We were there when Thomas passed. We did our duty, and he had done the same. He remembered now, sitting at other deathbeds, checking his watch, thinking of tomorrow's lessons, tomorrow's meetings. He had whispered condolences while his mind was already elsewhere. He had stood in rooms just like this one and waited for the end so he could go home. He was not the victim. He was the same as them. The disgust that rose in him was not from outward. It was directed from inward. He had lived a life that looked good from the outside, respected, quiet, kind, but it was a life spent waiting for other people to finish dying so he could get on with his own. And now they were doing the same to him. He wanted to speak, to tell them, to scream that he could hear every word, feel every impatient sigh, but his body had already given up. Only his mind remained sharp, awake. Trapped. The light outside began to soften. Evening crept in. Someone lit a lamp. Someone else said quietly, "It won't be long now." Thomas lay on the cold floor, surrounded by the people who had come to watch him die, and understood the final truth. No one is ever truly mourned while they are still breathing. We are only mourned when we stop getting in the way of everyone else's tomorrow. And so, he waited not for death, but for them to be free of him. Death is not the only thing we wait for. Sometimes, we wait for people to stop being inconvenient. One day, we'll all be in a room like that. The only question is, which side of the bed will we be standing on? This was The Gathering by the Strange Canvas. If stories like this stay with you, you'll find more on the channel.